Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. I'm Tripujiani. I'm from Universitas Harapan Bangsa Purwokerto. On behalf of my team, here I'd like to present the result of our study entitled Teachers' Readiness Toward the New Paradigm of English Language Teaching. Yeah, this is a narrative inquiry research. Actually, this is the result of discussion between me and some of my colleagues about the current practice of ELT. And then we put it in this paper. Okay, without any further ado, let me start my presentation. Well, in this presentation, I'll explore the teacher's perception toward the new paradigms in ELT and elaborate the current trends in the practice of ELT. Okay, I'll start from the notion that English is a lingua franca. As we all know, that lingua franca is a common language serving as a regular means of communication between people with different mother tongue. And English is one of lingua franca. Considering this, English becomes the most influential language in the world, and the demands of learning English increased dramatically. People learn English for many purposes. Some of them are to be able to communicate, to enlarge networking, and to improve the quality of life, such as to get scholarship or to get a certain job. And many other reasons focusing on the practical use of English. This is a real phenomenon showing that people learn English as a means of communication, not as subject matter to be mastered. This paradigm shift leads to the new trends in English language teaching. Okay, on the previous slide, we talked about the purpose of people learning English. And this purpose usually influenced by the situation at that time. Actually, since a long time ago, the methodology of ELT has continuously reformed depending on the condition and the needs of learning English. And following is the brief history of language teaching methodology. I'll start from the 19th century. In this century, the standard way of studying foreign language was influenced by the approach of studying Latin. A typical textbook used consisted chapters organized around grammar points. That's why this is called grammar translation method. And then in the mid of 19th century, emerged a reform movement that argued that foreign language should be taught like first language without translation or the use of native language. This method is called direct method. And then a significant change happened during the 20th century. The teaching paradigm fluctuated between accuracy versus fluency, separated skills versus integrated skills, the teacher-centered versus the student-centered, and so on. The teaching methodology emerged during this era where audiolingual, the silent way, the suggestopedia, the total physical response, the community language learning, and so on. But I don't think that I need to explain detail about this. Let's go to the beginning of the 21st century. In the beginning of the century, the language teaching practice becomes more student-centered and puts the role of teacher as facilitator and involves four skills called 21st century skills, namely cognitive skills, intrapersonal skills, interpersonal skills, and technical skills. Some teaching methods in this era are contextual teaching and learning, cooperative learning, the collaborative learning, problem-based learning, and project-based learning, and so on. Talking about history, one big event that must be written in the history is the pandemic of COVID-19. Our whole life was affected by this pandemic. Education is one of the most impacted one. However, not merely about the negative effect, but the rapid change in the education system also gave new insight on education in the digital era. And here are some advantages of the advanced technology in education. The first, It promotes the efficacy and quality of teaching. Second, it promotes interaction between teachers and students. And third, it equips the course content with flexibility. And fourth, it enhances students' understanding. Fifth, it promotes autonomous learning. And sixth, it enhances the students' interest and motivation. Well, as English language teaching constantly changed, eight major shifts was summed up. So here I'd like to share the eight major shifts on education paradigm proposed by Jacobs and Farrell that I cited from Richards 2006. The first is learner autonomy. Learner autonomy refers to the principle that learners should take an increasing amount of responsibility for what they learn and how they learn it. However, there's a misconception here that learner autonomy is synonymous with self-access learning or independent learning. Yeah, in my opinion, since the ability to take responsibility of one's own learning is not innate, but rather needs to be taught, there would be a great need for guidance of students when they want to be an autonomous learner. And based on the result of the interview, teachers have tried to promote autonomous learning by reducing their domination in the classroom and more focusing on students' active participation. Then, to facilitate self-learning, the teachers usually share the soft file or printout of the materials and also some references like ebook, website, YouTube channel, and so on. However, the main problems in motivating this autonomous learner is from the student's mindset that English is difficult, and then the culture of being passive students and their awareness toward the self-responsibility to take charge of their own learning. These psychological factors are necessary to be taken into account since to be autonomous students, they need to realize three basic needs. The first is sense of interest, and second needs of competencies, and the third needs of relatedness. And then the second is social nature of learning. Learning is not an individual private activity, but a social one that depends upon interaction with others. This is in line with the theory of constructivism that people construct knowledge through interaction between what have known and the knowledge or ideas or experience obtained. The movement that reflects this viewpoint is cooperative learning. And some activities that usually used by the teachers to stimulate cooperative learning are a kind of group activities such as team games, tournament, think, talk, write, think, pair, share, jigsaw, STAD, and task-based instruction. This kind of activities stimulate interaction, peer discussion, and positive interdependence between students. And then the third is curricular integration. English is not seen as a standalone subject, but is linked to other subjects in the curriculum. When several subject areas are taught together, students have a greater chance to see the connections between the different subject areas. This idea is commonly found at schools that implement content and language integrated learning or CLIL and English for specific purposes. On the teacher's opinion, actually this is still considered controversy since it still needed a consensus of the main focus of the learner, whether the content or the language used to be emphasized. The other problem is the teacher's content mastery. It seems that an English teacher should master all the subjects just like a primary teacher at elementary school, and from the student's point of view, learning a certain material using full English is a new challenge. At the same time, they have to understand the content and interpret it word by word. Sometimes the requirement of using English becomes a barrier for students to be active. The fourth is focusing on meaning. Meaning here is viewed as the driving force of learning. In accordance with the previous notion on curricular integration, cognitive psychology tells us that the process of learning best takes place when the new information is connected and stored in meaningful chunks. And the use of authentic materials may provide more meaningful learning, but finding the materials that match with the learning target sometimes not easy. Yeah, maybe this is one thing to be evaluated, whether we need to adjust the syllabus or the learning target or the content material itself. Most teachers believe that fluency is the main goal of language learning. That's why they put accuracy activities away from the learning process. And they often let the students to speak up without interruption, since too much correction from the teacher will distract the meaningful interaction and withdraw the students from being active. Actually, both accuracy and fluency are important in language learning. Therefore, teachers are suggested to use balance of fluency and accuracy activities, since the use of accuracy activities will support the students' fluency in speaking. And next, it is diversity. Diversity means the unique characteristic of the learners. They learn in different ways and have different strengths. To facilitate the diversity, some teachers apply pretests, and the result of this pretest can be used to analyze the students' proficiency level as well as their strength. Teachers usually apply varied learning methods in order to equip students with different learning strategies and also giving positive reinforcement. This reinforcement sometimes is an effective way to motivate the students to see their unique characteristic as the strength to be developed. And the sixth is thinking skills. Language should serve as a means of developing higher order thinking skills, also known as critical and creative thinking. In terms of language instruction, this means that students acquire language not just for its own purpose, but also so that they can improve and use their critical thinking abilities beyond the language classroom. What the teachers do to stimulate students' critical thinking is, for example, by giving a prompt or a topic to discuss, giving a competitive task involving problem solving, and connecting the learning materials with the implementation in the real situation. This kind of activities will improve the students' language proficiency as well as their thinking skills, since when they want to express their ideas, they need to use the proper language. Okay, next it is alternative assessment. New forms of assessment are needed to replace traditional multiple choice and other items that test lower order skills. And the current paradigm sees learning achievement not only from the outcome or product, but also the process. Therefore, further attempts are being made to develop assessment instruments that mirror real-life conditions and involve thinking skills. Most teachers agree with this statement that assessment must be seen from the learning process and also the product. For the components of scoring, it may include the students' active participation in the classroom, students' attendance, soft skill, and of course the midterm test, final test in the form of written or verbal test, and then assignment or project assessment, portfolio, and also observation verdict note with the proportion depending on the institution regulation. This attempt aims to motivate the students to appreciate a process and prevent them from doing anything for the sake of good score. And then the last is teachers as co-learners. The teacher is viewed as facilitator who constantly trying out different alternatives. That is learning by doing or action research. Many teachers are aware of the importance of reflective teaching and the needs of updating knowledge and skills through training, seminar, or workshop, and so on. But only few of them have willingness to do action research in their class to develop the practice of teaching and learning. Yeah. This is one more thing to be evaluated. Why? Teachers have a lack of willingness to do action research in which it is a part of reflective teaching. Okay, the next is the current trend of ELT. Currently, people live in the era of globalization and digitization. Technology has changed the way we express ourselves and interact with the world around us. Current trends of ELT were directed from the paradigm shift on education. So here are some trends in the current practice of ELT. The first, there is a change in the goals of learning language from learning the language skills to the ability to use the language in the social activity. And the second, there is a change in the role of teacher from the main actor in the classroom or teacher-centered to the facilitator of learning or student-centered. And the third, the use of authentic material to support meaningful learning. And the fourth, the ICT integration into learning activities to promote better quality of teaching. And the last, agreement that teachers are lifelong learners. Well, now we've come to the conclusion and recommendation. Based on this study, we conclude that most teachers are aware of the paradigm shifts on English language teaching and the urgency of change in order to fulfill the requirement of the 21st century skills. However, in the implementation of teaching and learning activities, adaptation, evaluation, and improvement are still needed. To adapt with the rapid change in ELT practice, teachers are recommended to be a lifelong learner, to keep updating the knowledge and skills through training, scientific workshop, seminar, and so on. And finally, the 21st century teachers must be creative, innovative, and adaptive to the rapid change in the world trends. Well, that's all from me. Thank you very much. I'm Tri Pujiani. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.